in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What's up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Hey, so it's another busy week. It feels like a million things are going on right now. From Florida's coaching search with, today allegedly the Tulane coach was going to interview, then didn't in the span of like 40 minutes it happened.
Yeah.
And like Florida fans were freaking out. And then, stuff with Lane Kiffin, they've got people back and forth, he's doing interviews. He's trying to, just keep pace with it all. Cause it's like, he's got LSU, wanting to hire him. You got Florida wanting to hire him. Ole Miss is wanting to keep him. Allegedly, he went to Baton Rouge on Monday, and then Sunday he was in Gainesville as well. So it's hard to really tell the smoke from the actual fires. Then you had the rankings come out last night, which, oh boy, I mean, people, I really honestly think now, when the BCS, it brought out a lot of controversy back then, which, it did. But now it feels like, honestly, this is only set up for controversy and only set up for conversation, because it really serves no point, like my honest opinion, because the next week or two, maybe even 3 weeks, because into the conference championship may decide it as well. But like, these things will get changed. Like, this is not set in stone. And I think a lot of these people are having these conversations, which may be completely different from next week, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. So it's like, it's kind of a pointless conversation to be getting this upset about something that could be vastly different come December 7th. So, that's just my opinion. I don't know. How do you feel about all these CFP rankings situations?
Well, there's obviously there's instances I've already talked about, the lack of group of five last time, and definitely went to bat for them. There are some interesting ones. Like, I still don't know how Notre Dame's in the top 10, especially after the comment was we looked at both Miami and Notre Dame's losses and felt Notre Dame's was better. And Miami beat Notre Dame at the beginning of the year, but they're primed for a playoff spot, and Miami is on the outside looking in at 13, which, given that they don't really have an inside track to the ACC championship, it's not looking good for them. But Notre Dame might literally fall up into this. And I mean, there's other things. The big one for me was Tulane. Tulane being at 24, even after Summerall said, I don't think we're a top 25 team, which is brutally honest coaching that you don't normally see. But I mean, their two losses, one of them was to Ole Miss, which is fine, but obviously they had the wins against Duke and Northwestern, but then a really bad loss to UTSA. They're still kind of the class of the AAC, and I think that's what the narrative went for, was that the AAC is the best group of five conference, so whoever's going to win that would be going in. That's what at least my rationale is as to why Tulane's in there, because honestly, given with how the AAC, there's a lot of teams that are going down, I wouldn't have been surprised if James Madison popped up in the top 25, even though I agree it's not as strong as the American, but I mean, their win-loss record, they have more wins, and especially against a team like Virginia, Virginia Tech, they were, looking much better. So anyway, again, with you, it's not going to matter until after the conference championships and we get all the bowl games in. It's, I just find it interesting. Same thing with Oklahoma flip-flopping with Bama. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting things going on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the stuff with Miami and Notre Dame, it's going to play itself out. Notre Dame has an easier schedule, so they more than likely should win out. And then Miami, I don't think they'll lose to Va Tech, because Va Tech is I think they're on a 4-game losing streak, and they fired their coach, and maybe even a 5-game losing streak. And but I feel like that Pitt game for Notre Dame it's like it's a trap. Like it's like it's been there all year. Like I know, a lot of people talked about it because Miami got lucky for the 70% of their schedule. They were in the state of Florida, and like most of their games, I think they have like 8 home games or something like that. And so like they had a ton of home games, and like now they have to play these latter 2 games on the road up north, and like it's going to be cold. They got lucky with the Va-Tech game because that's at it's a noon kickoff, I believe. But that Pitt game, as of right now, we don't know the time. But that could be a later game, especially if Pitt wins the Georgia Tech game. Either way, it's a huge game for Miami because they have to win that game if they want any chance of getting in the playoff. Because if they lose that game, they are done. They're not getting in with 3 losses. I'm surprised they're still in the conversation with 2 losses. But, last year was a little different. This year, well, also those losses last year were to worse teams. But if they lose to a team like Pitt, it's done. Like, there's no way they're coming back from that. No, the rest of it, like I said, it still has to be played out. I don't really care. Like, it's Tuesday, 3 weeks before conference championship games. There's a lot to be played. It's good for conversation. It is all over the place. Like I'm seeing it Twitter, my feed is just filled with people talking about it. And, Georgia Tech fans are upset because they're a 9-1 team and they're not getting highly ranked, which I agree with. Like, I think they should be higher than where they're at. Then you have teams like BYU that are upset because they're not up there as well, yet like their schedule and strength of record compares favorably to a lot of other teams. I don't get it. And it doesn't matter right now. Literally right now, it does not matter because BYU still has, a chance to play for the Big 12 championship game, and that gives them a leg up over almost 95% of the teams because they're going to be playing a Texas Tech team that is one of the best teams in the country. And if they have a chance, if they beat them or look better in that game, then they more than likely will get in with 2 losses, and both of them being to a top 5, top 4 Texas Tech team. So, again, this stuff does not matter. It really does not. Like, we're fighting over things that next week, that this Sunday or this Saturday could completely change the trajectory of all of what just happened on Tuesday. So to really split hairs on something that is meaningless, I wanted to give it time because it is everywhere. We have to talk about it. But at the same time, I realize that it doesn't really matter in the long run. Okay, so let's get into it. Week 13. We have 1 week after this, which I am extremely grateful for. And I love to celebrate that moment because it's like we're getting out of the full prep and our Sundays. My Sundays are literally, I wake up at 7 or 8 in the morning and I am watching film until we get on the show. It is a lot of work, folks. I'm telling you, this is not just us, kind of whatever. We literally do the homework to know what these teams are and to actually study them. So it is nice once you meet the end of the regular season because, when conference championship games come, it's 5 or 6 games that you're talking about, which is not that much work. And then you review them the next day. And then each week of the playoff is four games at most. So it becomes vastly easier this show, the month and a half of conference championship and playoff. So let's get into it. Week 13. Okay. First game I've got up is Missouri, Oklahoma. I don't know what to make of this Missouri team, but I will say that Mississippi State game was kind of like fool's gold because that Mississippi State team is just not that good. I mean, they only have 4 wins, and they've kind of struggled with a lot of teams all year. I don't know what to make of it because it's Missouri can run the ball well, and it's clear. But when they've played better teams, they lost to Vandy. Credit to Missouri there because they lost Perbula in the game, and they still played with them a little bit. But they lost to Texas A&M like shortly thereafter, 38-17, with Zollers playing at quarterback. So I don't expect much out of this Missouri team in this game. I feel like Oklahoma is a better defense than they've probably played since maybe Texas A&M, and I feel like it's going to be the same story. But the thing is with Oklahoma, their offense is not that great. So, I think Missouri can keep them in the game with their defense and slow down Mateer a little bit. But if Oklahoma is able to get some turnovers, I feel like they can get their short fields like they did against Alabama, and they can take advantage of it and, maybe win like a 24-20 game. And I feel like Oklahoma gets after the quarterback better than anyone else in the country. Bunch of sacks against Auburn, had a bunch against Alabama as well. So I expect Oklahoma to really kind of put Zollers in a spin cycle and not to do much. But they will probably run the ball decent amount. But again, Oklahoma's D-line is their strength. So I feel like if they can limit that, then this game may even be way different, because if they can really eliminate Missouri's run game, then you could see Oklahoma running away with this one. But I still think it's going to be close. I'm going to go with like a 27-20 game. What do you got?
So doing the homework on this one, because both these teams have history with each other, most notably the 2007 Big 12 championship where Missouri was number 1. And if they won, they would have gone to the national championship, but Oklahoma beat them. They did actually have a back-to-back matchup because the 2008 Big 12 championship came down to that too. But when they were in the Big 8 and all that, they played each other every year. And then once the Big 12 came in, they had to split divisions. It was every so often. And now they're seeing each other again. But doing the homework, because they do have history on each other. Obviously, the history has favored Oklahoma. Oklahoma has been a much, obviously, no surprise, much bigger program in their history compared to Missouri. And looking up, the last time Missouri beat Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma, was in 1966.
Oh, Lord.
The NHL only had 6 teams at that time. There's your hockey, date thing, whatever. But that's how long ago it's been. And with that,
I'm surprised it didn't
I'm sorry?
I'm surprised it involved Wayne.
He might have been like 2 or something. But with this game, Oklahoma, I feel like the defense too, because we've seen Missouri when they played, Bama, Texas A&M, even Vandy has a good defense, and they did a good job shutting down Missouri. I feel like that's going to be what the difference maker is, and I feel like Oklahoma's played way tougher offenses back-to-back matchups with Tennessee and Alabama, and have won those. So I got Oklahoma winning this one. I think it's going to be the same thing like the Bama game. If they can win the turnover battle and get short fields, they'll win the game, no problem. So I'm going to go Sooners winning let's do like a 27-17 win.
Yeah, and I forgot to look at this earlier, but the what's his face, Hardy for Missouri, Ahmad Hardy, he had 300 yards against Mississippi State. So that is clearly what did it for them in that game. But I don't think that's going to happen with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's just too good of a defense. They're not going to allow Missouri to run all over them. So let's move on to Rutgers, Ohio State. I don't think there's going to be much to this game. Again, what we didn't mention before the start of this week is the fact that the SEC is playing a lot of cupcakes this week. So outside of the Oklahoma-Missouri game and the Florida-Tennessee game, there are not many SEC games that are worthwhile to even talk about. So this is one of the slower weeks of the year, and I was kind of pulling teeth with some of the games that I picked here because some of them are not even worth to even talk about. And this one may not even be worth it either because, you look at a team like Rutgers, their quarterback is okay, but I mean, like in their losses to better teams, like in the Oregon game, he had 79 yards, 2 interceptions. I don't expect Ohio State to have a struggle here at all. I expect this game to be, you know, somewhat similar to the UCLA game where they won like 48-10 or whatever. And like, I just don't envision Rutgers giving much of a challenge to this Ohio State team. Sands been having a great year. He's in the top 5 of Heisman candidates as right now. The running attack from Ohio State is solid. They have quite a few guys in that room, Donaldson and Jackson. Obviously Jeremiah Smith and some of the other guys. But like, honestly, it's their defense. Like if you've looked at Ohio State all year, their defense has put up huge numbers all season long. Like the most they've allowed this season, like 16 points to Illinois, 6 points to Washington. I think they allowed 7 to Texas. They've just been able to, like, the good teams they've played, they've really kind of like stymied them. And so I don't envision Rutgers doing much here in this game. I'm going to say like a 45-10 game. What do you got, Ian?
As impressive as it is, Rutgers, who's literally 1 win away from going to a bowl game, they have the 5 wins, and especially guys like Antoine Raymond, the running back, he has 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, so he's had a great year. But all of their losses to like the better teams in the Big Ten, like Oregon, Washington, Illinois, those ones, they've been bad losses. Like they lost to Illinois a few weeks ago, 35-13, and then they got blown out by Oregon early in October. So I don't feel like they're, going to give much of a fight to Ohio State because kind of similarly, they are the top of the Big Ten, and they haven't really shown that they can keep up with them. So I think Ohio State runs away with it in Columbus. I'm going to go with, let's do like a 38-10 win for the Buckeyes.
Okay, moving on to Miami Vatech. This one is not going to be much discussion either, just because, Miami's kind of counted, like righted the ship after the Louisville and SMU losses. They smoked NC State. And then you've got Vatech, like we said earlier, they fired their coach and they're on a 5-game losing streak and they have not looked good in any of these games. So I don't expect Vatech to really come out with any kind of like passion or anything. Miami should steamroll this game, but this is like one of those like also classic trap games where it's a noon kick, I believe. And, Vatech does have the crowd support. I don't know if they're all been showing up since they fired the coach, since they've been doing so bad this year, but maybe they get up for this game. This used to be, they've had this rivalry even to the Big East days. And I know, Ian, you'll probably bring it up, but like, it's, I don't expect Miami to really have a struggle here. I expect them to move the ball well. Tony's going to have a big game. He's probably the best freshman wide receiver out there. And, Bain and that defensive line should have their way with Vatech. And this should be a laugher. I'm going to say like a 35. But the thing is, though, like Miami, like, I don't know. It's interesting. Some weeks they're able to score, then some weeks are kind of stymied. So, because this offense is not as good as it was last year, but it's still a good offense. But again, it's Beck who's the problem. He's always been the problem with their offense. He can implode one week and then have like 4 touchdowns like he did last week or whatever. So like I don't expect that to happen here. I don't expect a Beck implosion. I expect him to probably do well enough and let the other players take advantage of the situation here, because I don't expect Vatech's defense to be that into the game. And so especially because Miami likes to run the ball too a good amount, especially when they're leading. So I'm going to say like Miami wins like 38-14. What do you got?
I think in this one too, it's going to take a huge implosion, like what they did with SMU, for the offense to really hurt Miami right now, because Miami still has the best defense in the ACC, and even in their losses, they weren't allowing more than like 30 points. So at least the defense was doing its job. It's just the offense would be stuck in the mud. And I feel like in this one, Vodtek's near the bottom in the ACC in like offensive rankings and yards per game. So I don't feel like that's going to be too much of a problem. The best chance they have is if Miami keeps shooting themselves in the foot, which they have a history of. So, yeah. But I feel like when it's out of their hands, it's not really, much of a fight. So I think Miami gets the job done, and I'm going to take the Canes winning. I'll go with let's do like a 28-13 win. It should be called the Big East Bowl in this game.
Yeah, old school Big East, even before USF days.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We've got Louisville, SMU. This game would have been a lot bigger if both these teams had kept winning. But SMU is not out of things. They're right there in the mix for stuff. So, especially with the ACC. So, I don't know. This Louisville team's kind of been disappointing the last couple of weeks. They beat Miami, and then last 2 weeks they losses to Cal, and then a loss to Clemson. And it's like, they should have beaten both of those teams. They were, like at that point, they were better than both of those teams record-wise. Now they're like almost on the same level as those two. So I don't know what to make of this Louisville team. This SMU team also has some head scratchers. That loss to Wake Forest really kind of stands out. But then again, SMU beat Miami as well. So they both have those wins against Miami. They were both kind of close games. SMU took them to overtime to win that one. I feel like SMU doesn't have the best defense, and that will advantage Louisville a little bit here. And then also, if Louisville's defense can do enough against Jennings, which I think Jennings still puts up like a decent amount of numbers, maybe like 275 yards. But if they keep him in check just enough, and that Louisville can get the win, I'm going to say Louisville gets the win, and then this really knocks out SMU from any ACC consideration. So I'm going to say Louisville wins, because then again, like SMU, their crowd, it's not really that big of an advantage. I mean, like, it's funny. It's like, with Miami, it was like whatever, because both their crowds really stink. But like Louisville actually gets a crowd to their games. Like they get people there. It's a decent stadium, and like there's a decent environment there. So I'm gonna say it doesn't hurt Louisville here, that crowd, and then Louisville is able to take advantage of their defense stymieing Jennings just enough. I'm gonna say like a 28-25 game. What do you got?
Yeah, and I think in this game, the big thing is that Louisville has the 16th best defense in the country right now. And the offense, I think, was in like the 50 range or something like that. So obviously the defense has done a lot of carrying, but when the offense clicks, we've seen it, it can be very dangerous. I mean, they were right there with like Clemson, and they had that bad loss to Cal, but they did beat Vodtek. They obviously had the win against Miami. They had the shootout against Boston College. And meanwhile, SMU blew out, both Boston College and won in overtime to Miami and beat Clemson. So they have very similar, resumes here. For me, this is a really tough one because I really like Louisville's defense, but I don't know with the offense. I feel like, though, SMU's defense isn't as good as they're better than Cal. I'll go with SMU winning this one. I feel like they have the momentum right now, and they're kind of in more of a must-win mode given their ACC record compared to Louisville. So I feel like they will want it more than Louisville. So I think the Mustangs pull it off. It might be a shootout, or I think it'll be very close, but I'll give SMU a 27-20 win.
Okay, moving on. We got our, not living up to the hype USF Bulls. I don't know. I'm like, a lot of people are just kind of writing this off and it's over. And then you got, rumors about Alex Golish leaving potentially to Oklahoma State, which, I don't know. I guess that would be a step up and there's more money and whatever. I don't blame him if he goes, it is what it is. That's what happens when these smaller schools and they get good coaches, they get the possibilities of these bigger jobs. It's just the reality. It's not an even playing field, until USF gets into a bigger conference and sustains things, will they really be able to avoid that? And again, with the on-campus stadium, building that and really building the tradition at USF is a huge thing. So I think things will change over the next couple of years, obviously, hopefully getting into a bigger conference. But again, this is the reality. When you have a good coach, teams are going to come looking and interview your coach. So that's just what the reality is. So as far as this game, UAB comes in with a big win against Memphis a couple weeks ago. They got smoked against North Texas. 1 week in the Memphis game, their quarterback was Burton. And then the North Texas game, it was Kitna. So I don't know who their starter is. But they fired their coach. They fired Trent Dilfer. And, USF is obviously coming off that loss to Navy last week. And, 2 weeks before that, lost to Memphis. So USF's kind of reeling at this point. Not as much to play for because the American Conference Championship game is a very slim possibility, but the playoff possibility is completely zero. So USF, at this point, it's brutal because it's they had so much in front of them. All they really had to do was beat Navy, and then these games became immense. The UAB game, and then the Rice game, and then it would be so much on the line. And now it's I don't know. I mean, it feels like we're defeated, and the fans are upset. It's frustrating. Even if the crazy thing though, if they win out and they go 9-3 for the regular season, and then potentially win their bowl game, they would be 10-3, which is almost exactly what I predicted to start the season at 10-2. So I'm kind of amazed, even though what we've gone through, that is considered a disappointment. Is that not crazy to you, Ian?
Yes. I don't think the two losses were, or the wins were going to come from where we thought they were going to be. But I mean, hey.
Yeah, exactly. We thought there was going to be at least 2 losses from that group, and I thought they were going to go undefeated in the American, and they didn't. And it's frustrating because I don't know. Byron Brown is just putting up monster numbers. Literally, the only other person that is putting up numbers like him is Haynes King, and he's not getting any pub either, which I don't get. Haynes King is in a Power 4 conference and putting up close to 500 yards of offense almost every week, and you're not hearing anything about him for Heisman very much, which is kind of criminal. But I don't know. Byram, just a tremendous player. I am extremely appreciative of him, and I hope that he has a big game here and just finishes out these next 2, and we'll see if he comes back next year. I don't know. I mean, if he gets some feelers in the NFL and he looks like he's a 5th or 4th round draft pick, maybe he should go. I don't know if it would be worth it to come back because he comes back to USF, whatever. But the only other possibility would maybe if he transfers. I don't want him to transfer, but I also want him to do well. I don't know. I mean, I'd love for him to stay at USF and come back another year. But then again, if he has a possibility of going to the NFL, he should. Your thoughts on this game? Well, let me give you my prediction. So I feel like USF should win this game. I know it's a letdown from last week, but I still feel like they're a better team than UAB. I feel like UAB does decent on offense, but obviously they've struggled on defense, and they've given up a ton of points. They gave up 53 to North Texas, and I feel like USF can put up at least like 35 on them, and I don't see UAB scoring more than like 28. So I'm going to say like a, I don't know, 38 to like 22 game. What do you got?
I feel like in this one too, it's going to be the last, how this season finishes out with these two games is going to be very important for how we look at Alex Golish, because there's already, I would be the first to say it, that there is disappointment for not him only going 1-6 against ranked conference teams, and with a team this good, yeah, that shouldn't happen. So now it's up to making sure you don't lose the team and finish these games out, because you vividly remember what I said last year when they lost that Rice game. I was like,
oh yeah,
this is a problem. Like, this might be a red flag here. So they have to finish out strong, because yes, this is not what we wanted. This is not what USF wanted and all that, but you still have the potential of finishing with the best record since 2017. So that should be the goal. You cannot be stuck at 7 wins. That's what I said. A 6-win, 7-win season should not be the cap for this program if it is going to mature like it should. So now you have layup games against UAB and Rice, and now you have to finish strong, and you have to tell your players, we still have games to win here against teams that we are better than. So now it's time to prove it. So I feel like, all that being said, USF, they're more talented. UAB, yes, they had the win against Memphis, but I mean, all the other games, they've just, they've been outclassed. So I feel like the only way UAB wins is if USF hurts itself, which I'm hoping doesn't happen, but that might be where we would see like frustration, mistakes, and, just not caring, pretty much like we saw with the Rice game last year. So if that doesn't happen, USF has got this game by a lot. I feel like they will. It might take another big second half, but I feel like they'll win. I'll go with the 35-14 win for the Bulls.
Okay. Next game we've got is USC Oregon. Man, I really wanted to go to this game. I've been wanting to go to a Eugene, Autzen Stadium game for a long time. I just have never been able to pull the trigger. Maybe something in the future I'll be able to pull together. But USC coming off that win against Iowa in the rain, 26-21. Maivia looked pretty good in that game. King Miller had a decent game. They kind of rebounded from that loss to Notre Dame. The defense has looked better the last couple of weeks. But then you've got a team like Oregon who, struggled against Iowa and then blew out Minnesota. I think this Oregon team, is definitely someone that, like, I don't know, maybe they're just – because that Iowa game was that was a rainy game as well. So, like, you can't really, like, parse out of that too much. But they obviously looked better against Minnesota. I feel like this USC team is in position to win this game, but it's like it's in Autzen, and like I feel like Oregon has an advantage there. Then again, they did lose to Indiana like a month and a half ago, so they can be got there. But this is a playoff eliminator. Like this between these two teams, if USC loses this game, they're out of the playoff. And if Oregon loses, I mean, they don't have many good wins. Like outside of that Iowa win, the Penn State win doesn't look that great because Penn State's fallen apart. They lost to Indiana. There's not really anything else that stands out. The rest of the wins are against teams that are not very good. And so they didn't play Ohio State. They didn't play Michigan. So it's not their fault. That's what the schedule is. But they didn't have like a ton of like non-conference games against tough opponents. They do have Washington after this, so like they could make up for it there a little bit. But like, is that enough when you have teams like Notre Dame, who's beaten like Pitt and who's beaten not really much else either, but like Miami maybe, where like Miami's beaten Notre Dame and like has some tough losses as well. So you're kind of parsing hairs again. So like you're really kind of like putting yourself in a bad light if you don't get this win. So it is huge for either team here. USC and Oregon both need this game. Man, you will go back to like, Lincoln Riley's kind of pooped the bed in these like big time games. If it's from the playoff game in 2018-17, where they lost to Georgia, or where they lost to, was it LSU in 2019? Yeah. And then a couple of years ago when Caleb Williams got hurt in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. And so like, Lincoln Riley's had these opportunities and is just not taking advantage of it, and, been the loser on these games. So is this the time where he turns it around? I don't know. I actually want to hear your thoughts before I give my prediction, but go ahead.
So this game, USC, we've said it all year, they have the number one offense in the Big Ten, and they're top like 10 in the entire country in total offense. So the problem is now they're facing a buzzsaw in Oregon's defense. Obviously, Dan Lanning, defensive mind, he coaches that team up. And regardless of how the offense plays, the defense has always showed up in any of these games. It literally took the Indiana team to find a way to win in that one. And even then, that did not come easy. That was a close game. Indiana didn't run away with it still. But regardless of how the offense plays, the defense will always be in it. For USC, it is this is obviously their toughest matchup all year. It goes without saying. And playing this defense that has been this tough, they're third in the Big Ten and they're top 15 in the country. The offense is going to have to make some plays, and they're going to have to take advantage of the very limited times, because I don't like USC's defense compared to Oregon's offense, while I do with USC's offense compared to Oregon's defense. Because USC, they had some, obviously, I'm thinking probably too much about the Notre Dame game, but when they have played pretty good offenses, like Illinois, Notre Dame, they've kind of stumbled, and they've been having to play catch up, especially on defense. When it's been kind of more lackluster ones, they beat Michigan. They beat Iowa in a close one last week. I'll excuse that one because of the weather. Yeah, I feel like in this one, the other thing to note too, doing the homework on this one, obviously taking it back to the Pac-12 here when they were playing each other. They have, since the turn of the millennium, they have played in Eugene, Oregon 8 times. USC has only won 3 times there. And the last time they won was in 2011. So it has been a house of horrors for the Trojans to go up to Oregon, because every other time Oregon hasn't just beaten them in Eugene, they have blown them out. Yeah. So I feel like with that, I think I trust Oregon's offense against this defense more than I would USC's offense to Oregon's defense. So I'm going to go Oregon winning this one. I think USC's best shot is making it a shootout, but and maybe forcing some turnovers on more. But I'm going to take the Ducks. I'm going to go with let's do a 30-27 win for Oregon.
I just feel like you said, it's one of the best offenses not only in the Big Ten but in the country. I feel like they should be able to move the ball decently enough against Oregon's defense. Now, the question is, what will Oregon do on offense against USC's defense, which USC's defense has done better. Like last couple weeks, 17 points to Nebraska, 17 to Northwestern, 21 to Iowa. But those three offenses are pretty limited. Nebraska has a backup quarterback. Northwestern, not very offensively minded. And Iowa, obviously, everyone knows famously, the Sickos team. So, they're not known for scoring a ton of points, those three offenses. But they did hold Michigan to 13 points. So, really, the outliers are the Illinois game and the Notre Dame game, which those are probably the two best teams that they've played outside of Oregon. So, and they allowed 34 to both of them. Maybe that's the key here. Maybe that's if this USC defense can bow up, can make the plays, make some turnovers, like you said, to Dante Moore, is there a chance that they can turn this into keeping them under around 20 points and then they score around 28, 30 points, which I think is possible. I mean, their offensive output has been over, 30 points almost every game outside of the Nebraska and Notre Dame game. So, and Iowa too. So, but I feel like Oregon, I think they're going to get stymied here. I think USC just does enough. So I'm going to say a 28 to 24 game, and maybe Maeva makes a huge play in the fourth quarter, and Oregon's trying to score to go ahead late, and USC makes the play to stop them. Okay, moving on to Michigan. Kansas State, Utah. This is an interesting game because Kansas State has kind of looked a lot better the last couple of weeks than they did in the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, they were 1-3 and looked like their season was really going to come off the rails. But they've kind of played a lot better lately, and they're still 5-5, but they've had some wins. That loss against Texas Tech, whatever. I mean, Texas Tech is a steamroller right now, but They beat TCU, they beat Kansas, and they beat Oklahoma State, and really only that loss to Baylor, was kind of, it probably shouldn't have lost that one. But outside of that, they've looked a lot better. Again, this is a different monster because this Utah team runs the dang ball, and they run the ball extremely well. I would say this is probably, because this is it's an innovative running attack, and because the quarterback's familiarity with the offensive coordinator lends itself to all kinds of trickeration, because they're obviously very in sync with how they're doing things. So it makes them much more difficult to defend. Utah at this point, 8-2 coming into this game. They're looking to stay pace with BYU and Texas Tech in case either of them slip up. I feel like, Utah, I don't know. I just feel like Utah's a better team here. It's in Salt Lake City. I feel like Utah should be able to score a decent amount. I like Avery Johnson a ton. I think their offense can score points. I think they can put up at least 25, 28 points, but I feel like Utah, against Kansas State's defense, that's what they've really struggled with. Kansas State this year is playing good defense. So I feel like Utah is going to be able to score a decent amount. They destroyed Cincinnati last week, and they barely lost to that BYU team. So I feel like this Utah team is peaking at the right moment, and I feel like they'll be able to win this game. I'm going to say Utah wins probably 35 to 30. What do you got, Ian?
And this one, it's definitely a trap game and a half, because Kansas State, they've been very dangerous even with their losses, and they're fighting to make that bowl game. but it's always a matter of what K-State team are we getting? Are we getting the team that barely beat Oklahoma State? Or are we getting the team that blew out Kansas, or the one that got steamrolled by Texas Tech and barely lost to a really like a BYU or a Baylor team that they should have beaten? Utah, they're still, praying, as they always do, praying for the downfall of BYU so they can maybe leapfrog them in this one. We'll talk about BYU later, but they're in win now mode, and I feel like they blew out Baylor. They've been blowing every team out since that BYU loss, so they're kind of just a team that's just wrecking everybody in front of them, and I think K-State's going to have to face the music in this one. I like Utah just, playing keep away and running over them. I'm gonna go the Utes winning with let's go with like a 31-19 win for Utah.
Okay, moving on to Michigan, Maryland. I'm not going to say too much in this one because Maryland's on a 6-game losing streak. I put this one on because Michigan, is still potentially a playoff team, so they have a lot to play for here, especially their matchup against Ohio State next week. But I feel like Underwood, it was a close game last week. I think Northwestern kind of surprised them. Underwood had those 2 interceptions that really kind of kept Northwestern in the game. Outside of that, Marshall, their running back, is putting up huge numbers. Had 142 last week, 2 TDs. I don't know. And Marsh had a good game as well, their receiver. That's like one of their only – Marsh and McCulley. Marsh had 189 yards, which is kind of unheard of for a Michigan wide receiver. But I feel like Michigan should easily win this one. I'm going to say like Michigan wins like probably 35-17. What do you got?
Not only that, do you know Maryland's last home Big Ten win?
Last year, maybe?
You're correct, against USC.
Oh,
so
I remember that game.
Yeah. So Maryland hasn't beaten a Big Ten, opponent at home. Obviously, all of this year they beat Wisconsin on the road, and they haven't won, at home. And their last traditional, I'm going to say traditional because let's be real, USC and the Big Ten, we're still getting used to that. But ironically, 2 years, their last traditional Big Ten win was against Indiana, where they blew them out in 2023. Obviously, times have changed, but I don't feel like much is going to change here. I think Michigan, as long as they don't, play close, they should not be playing down in their competition like they did against Northwestern. They should handle business. I think they'll get it done. I'm going to go with a 28-10 win for the Wolverines.
Okay, next one we have is Pitt, Georgia Tech. This game is huge, man. Like, this is – because I thought Pitt was, had a chance of winning last week, and I was wrong. But this is still a huge game. This is an eliminator game for Georgia Tech because if Georgia Tech loses this, they likely won't get into the playoff, even if they won out winning the ACC. So they have to win this game to have a realistic shot. And then next week, Georgia Tech. Now Georgia Tech is on the reverse because now Georgia Tech is in the playoff eliminator mode. So they got this Pitt game. They got Georgia next week in Atlanta, and then potentially an ACC championship game. So Georgia Tech is on, a high alert the next 3 weeks. So, again, I'm a huge fan of Haynes King. This kid, it's funny, considering where Haynes King has come from when he was at Texas A&M and people made fun of his throwing style, which was so awkward and it came up for, I don't know if you remember that. When he first came in,
yeah,
I remember. His throwing style was very awkward and long and took forever. And I haven't seen a breakdown if it has changed, but it looks different because it doesn't look like the same. Because the way that they run their offense, it's very quick throws. So I don't think he even has time to do that kind of wind up because it would take too long for him to get those quick throws, which, the offense is predicated on that. They do RPOs, they run motions off their wide receivers, and they're trying to find advantages in any way they can on the defense. And Haynes King, man, dude just puts up numbers. I am such a huge supporter of this kid because he was kind of like an afterthought when he went to Georgia Tech. And look what he's done. He literally took a team that had been terrible for like 7 or 8 years to now on the verge of an ACC championship game berth and potentially a playoff berth. And, you know, credit to Brent Key as well, the whole organization. So, like, this game is going to be very difficult because Heinzel, quarterback for Pitt, puts up huge numbers. But last week against Notre Dame, he got stymied. That Notre Dame pass rush was in his face the entire game. And I will say the wide receivers for Pitt did him no favor by dropping a lot of balls. I still feel like this offense is potent with Heinzel because some of those wide receivers, when they are making plays, they're putting up huge numbers. So this game could be a shootout, which I'm feeling like it will be. I'm going to say Georgia Tech wins this one, but it's going to be close. And I'm going to say like a 38-35 game, and maybe Haynes King does it again with his magic and gets him a game-winning drive and gets a late touchdown to win it. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and obviously, again, both these teams fight, especially Georgia Tech, you know, trying to hang on to their, you know, spot at the top of the ACC, and Pittsburgh trying to knock on the door. This is an eliminator, make no mistake about it. And I feel like in this game, obviously, we've talked a lot about Georgia Tech's offense. It's, you know, it is the best in the ACC. It's one of the best in the country. And I mean, like, it's no surprise, again, when running the ball, they are the very best at it with the attack they have with Kane. But I feel like in this game, defensively, it's really what's going to be the difference maker. Pitt needs to prove that they can hang with like this kind of just run down your throat attack that Georgia Tech has. And I feel like they can. Pitt is done, I think they've only averaged giving up about 90 yards a carry or 90 yards a game through the season. Now, credit, a lot of the teams they played have kind of been like aired out teams. I mean, like NC State, Stanford, Florida State would run the ball, and that one was close. I feel like, bless you. Man, you know, I feel like because it's in Atlanta, and I know, like, I think the last time Georgia Tech beat Pitt in Atlanta was like 2017 or something like that. But I have a feeling that it's going to be in Atlanta, and, you know, they're undefeated at home. I feel like Georgia Tech gets it done. They need to, obviously, both these teams are, even though Georgia Tech won last week, both these teams aren't coming off really impressive weeks. Georgia Tech had a comeback against Boston College, and then Notre Dame just ran up and down Pitt. But I feel like Georgia Tech has enough in the tank to get it done against Pitt. They'll probably just run it out, grind it out against the Panthers, and they'll get the win. I'm going to go Yellow Jackets winning a really close one. I think it'll be low scoring. I'll go with like a 24-20 win for Georgia Tech.
You think it's going to be low scoring?
I think so, because Georgia Tech's running attack might be, look, we know Pitt's offense is, when it's on, is as dangerous as it can be. So let's just keep running the ball, averaging 5-6 yards a carry. If they can get it against this Pitt defense, if they can average, that's what I'll say. If Georgia Tech can get to third and like 2-3, which is like what they're entirely built on, they've got Pitt right where they want them. Because I have no doubt in my mind they can get those 2-3 yards. And we've seen, you know, Key just be like, right at our 50, it's 4th and 2. Just Kane run through somebody's face and get the first, which they've done a billion times. Well, the only choice for Pitt is they're going to have to, like, I feel like if they don't have the time of possession game, they're going to have to capitalize on every possession they have.
Well, what do you counter with? What do you feel about Georgia Tech's defense, which has been kind of lackluster last couple of weeks? Giving up 48 to NC State and 34 to a 1-9 Boston College, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, see, that's where I think the offensive game plan of just playing keep away, because they know that's how Pitt's going to beat them, is that maybe they don't have the strongest defense, and we've seen Pitt when they're on. I mean, they put up 53 on the team that beat Georgia Tech, NC State, and they won the shootout against Florida State. That's why I think, like, Georgia Tech is just going to try to play keep away and run it down on the ground. So that's why I think it'll just be low scoring, because they're just going to be having these huge long drives. And I mean, sure, they'll, try to hit the big play. I mean, I could be wrong too, where this could be like a, old school, like 56-50 Big 12 game. I won't be surprised by that. But I feel like it'll be a 24-20 game, especially because I don't feel like any team's going to try to be making mistakes. I feel like Pitt would be more of the gambler. But, man, if you give Tech the ball in positive field position, you're asking for trouble. Ask Clemson how well that happened. They, like, the turnover ratio, they scored almost like 20 points off turnovers. So that's why I think Pitt might need to be a little more cautious with.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We got Florida, Tennessee in a game where Tennessee has not won in Gainesville since I was there in person in, was it 03 or 04? No, it was 03. 03. I was there in person. I remember being there. I don't remember what year. I remember what year now because the Dallas Baker punch was the next year, which we got screwed on. But like in 03, I think Ingle Martin was the quarterback before Chris Leak came out. Like that's how long ago that was. But I have swore off not going to this game until Florida loses again. So like I will continue to never go to this game in person in Gainesville until Florida loses. That's the only time I will come back. I will gladly stay away so that the streak continues as long as I can. But I will say that with the fact that this is probably the least hype I have seen for this rivalry game in my entire life. Like I've never seen a Tennessee Florida game with less hype, and it's sad. It really is sad. And considering this is the last full year of this rivalry, next year it goes away. So it's like it's really kind of lost its luster. Tennessee is holding up their end of the bargain, but Florida's been so putrid this year, and it's frustrating. I wish this game could be a lot better for everyone involved. It was a lot of fun for many years, obviously starting off with Philip Fulmer and Steve Spurrier and Peyton Manning and Danny Warfel and, even to the games in Knoxville where those were always kind of a crazy going-ons there. And then, it really wasn't until like mid-2000s where the game the rivalry switched and then Florida started winning all the time. I mean, Tennessee has won lately in Knoxville, but like I said, that streak continues in Gainesville. So they've only really won like 3 times in the last 20 years. So it's been kind of hit or miss for Tennessee fans. I feel like Tennessee fans probably feel like this is their shot. Like if there's ever a shot to end the streak, this is it. Like more than any other opportunity in like even maybe that game in 2013 where
Will Greer
got hurt.
Not Will Greer, Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah, Driscoll got hurt, and like Tyler Murphy came in and he led them to the win. But it's like even then, like Florida was still not that bad at that point, so they probably thought they may not have won that game anyways. But like, man, this is so ripe for the picking. Florida's 3-7. Their availability report is monstrous. I think I saw someone say it's 20% of the scholarship players, which is ridiculous. But I feel like Florida, showed enough in that Ole Miss game that they should contend in this game. And it's a rivalry game, and it's at home. It's a night game. Like, I feel like Florida might have enough juice in this game to actually do something, which why I'll be watching it intently, because last week I kind of was like, whatever about it. But this week, man, it's like, this is a game that they can win. If they win the next 2 games, win out rivalry games, it's kind of a good note to go out on, even though it would be 5-7. But, it's still beating Tennessee, beating Florida State. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts before I give a prediction.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, I'm with you. Unlike you, I have been to this game. It is one of the best games you could see the Gators play. It's a great rivalry. I've said it all year. I loathe that we're playing this in November, because the rivalry is literally called the third Saturday in September, and we're playing it in November. Again, I don't like it. And again, you've already heard me say it. I don't like us not playing them anymore. Again, I'll die on this hill. As much as I hate these teams, Tennessee, Florida State, Georgia, I want to play them every year because it is just good for college football and for everybody involved. Regardless, so you mentioned 2003 was the last time they won in the Swamp. And forget, that's not something to snuff at either. But the other thing to note, too, was that was a noon game. The last time Tennessee beat Florida in the Swamp at night was in 2001 when they had to move it back. This is a game where you legitimately did have to play at the end of the year in 2001 because it was supposed to be played the week of September 11th. And that was famously Steve Spurrier's last game in the Swamp where Tennessee upset Florida. And they have not, from what I remember, the last time they won in Florida at night in September was in like the 70s and 60s, because they didn't play each other that much until the 90s. So there's a lot of history against Tennessee here. But I agree with you. If you are Tennessee and you are looking at this game right now and you're looking at Josh Heupel, when are you going to beat Florida in the Swamp? Because there is no better time. They're without their coach. They're without, like you said, 20% of their starting players, and they are as down as could be, as we've seen the programs in 5 years. God help us. I agree. Like, you have to do, this has got to be the time. This is a must win for Tennessee, just in general, for the, appearance of you can beat Florida in the Swamp. But then again, the Gators have been really sticky team, unless you're Kentucky. That's why my thinking is like, if it's a rivalry game or if it's a big game, like the Ole Miss game, obviously there was a lot going into that with Lane Kiffin. Georgia, obviously, they're going to, try to kill each other for that. And I feel like the same thing will happen with Florida State. So with this game, it's obviously, a huge game. That's the only hope for Gator fans I'll give them, is maybe because, they hate Tennessee so much, they will play up to it. But Tennessee's got the better team, and health in general. They're more healthy. They have, they still have their coach, and they've proven that they can, they can beat Florida. It's just they can't beat them in the Swamp. So, yeah, I'm going to go. I hate to say it, but I think the Vols snap the streak, and they get their first win since 2003 in the Swamp. I'll go with Florida puts up a fight, but I'll go with like a 30-20 win for the Volunteers.
Yeah, and just looking at the numbers, Tennessee with Aguilar, he puts up huge yardage. I will say they struggle to really stop other teams' offenses, though. So maybe this is kind of like a breakout game for DJ Lagway. I don't know if Florida's defense is going to be up to the task of keeping Tennessee's wide receivers in check, but Florida plays that too high safety, so they're going to eliminate the explosive plays for the most part. And if that's the case, I don't think Tennessee's going to really dink and dunk too much. And so I think they're going to still try to get those long explosive plays, and it's just not going to work. Again, I feel like DJ could have a good game here. His defense can be had, and I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say Florida wins. I'm going to say a 31 to 24 game, and maybe Tennessee or Florida scores to go up that score and then gets an interception late to ice it. But yeah, again, it could easily go the other way, and the streak could be over, and then I can finally go back to a Tennessee-Florida game in Gainesville for the first time in
I'm not kidding. If Florida does pull this off, dude, Heupel's gonna, no matter how much better Tennessee is gonna be, they're gonna be, there's gonna be hell to pay when he goes back to Knoxville if that happens.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're gonna be upset. Okay, moving on. Last couple of games we got BYU, Cincinnati. Huge game for BYU. Cincinnati kind of falling off here. I like BYU a ton in this game. I've been a huge fan. Bear Bachmeier puts up huge numbers. They, in a similar opponent that they played, BYU beat Utah 24-21. Cincinnati lost to Utah 45-14. Again, different offenses that Utah runs than what BYU runs, so maybe different results. So it's not really that much of a clarifier here what will come of it between those two, but it does show that a common opponent that BYU is probably on par with Utah, and I feel like it's not going to be an exact same result, but I feel like Utah or BYU will still prevail here. I feel like they should win by like 10 plus points. I'm going to say BYU wins like probably 34 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, and I feel like BYU, and again, this happened last year, BYU, you've got everything in front of you.
Yeah.
Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You have Cincinnati, who, yes, is good, but then you have UCF after. Don't look them over the mountain before you climb it. Yeah. So for BYU, I feel like I agree with you on all the points. They'll get enough done on the ground, and especially with Bachmeier. And I like the defense, especially against the Cincinnati team, because Cincinnati still hasn't played a full 4 quarters, and BYU can. So I think the Cougars get it done, and I'm going to go with a 31-17 win for BYU.
Nice. Okay, last two. Washington, UCLA. It's really tough for UCLA because they're coming off losses to Ohio State and Indiana there shortly before that. And I don't know. It's just tough for this team. They fired their coach. They played tough against Nebraska. They did beat Maryland 20-17, but they've just looked kind of, I don't know. It's tough when you're losing so bad. It's really tough to get the team to play up for that stuff. I have not seen if Nico is if he's playing this week or not. He was out from the game. Let's see. I don't know. It just said something about how he's handling the QB situation with his injury. So maybe more than likely he doesn't play. And if he doesn't play, I feel like Washington should smoke them. Sorry to all my UCLA fans and friends. I feel like if Nico's in this game, it's a lot closer, and UCLA actually has a chance to win this game. But I'm going to say Washington wins this one if they have a backup in there. So I'm going to say Washington wins like probably 28 to like 17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and I feel like with UCLA, kind of reality setting in. They've had that, incredible run from the last couple of weeks, but it's kind of come crashing down. And if, Nico's out, I don't see them kind of playing catch up because Washington just is more of a complete team right now. And I think the Huskies get it done. I'm going to go with let's do like a 31-20 win for Washington.
Okay. Ian, G5 game of the week. Take it away.
So the Mountain West is a mess, to put it bluntly. San Diego State right now only has one loss in conference play, and they're 8-2, so they're clearly the best. But their last game is against New Mexico, which is also 4-2. So first place right now is 5-1 conference play, San Diego State. Second place is literally tied with everybody being 4-2. And one of those teams is our buddy Dan at UNLV and Hawaii. The reason this game matters is because both of these teams, their last games are pretty much layup games. Hawaii plays Wyoming, who only has 4 wins, and UNLV plays Nevada, which only has 2 wins on the year. So this is the eliminator game for any chance of them going to the Mountain West. Clearly, these teams need help because New Mexico, Boise State, and Fresno State are still ahead of them. But if they have any chance, and with chaos as we've seen this year, this is going to be the game, that will kill off whoever is going to the Mountain West Championship. Obviously, we've heard all about, UNLV, and then after, their losses, they had the back-to-back losses to Boise State and New Mexico, which should have killed them off. Somehow they're sticking around because of how messy it's been. They had that overtime win against Utah State. Meanwhile, Hawaii, it's been shootout after shootout after shootout. So clearly, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like UNLV will find a way to win. As bad as the defense has been, I feel like the offense is more equipped to win in these situations and has a better rushing attack than Hawaii. So I'm going to go with UNLV winning I'll go with a barn burner. I'm going to go with like a 45-38 win for the Rebels.
I mean, like, from what I've seen from UNLV, they've struggled defensively in some of these games. So, like, if Hawaii can put up any kind of offense, they've got a shot here. And, like, I do love Dan's offenses. I've always loved them. Like, all the way back to 2005, he's been a great offensive mind. So I feel like he'll be able to score points in this game off of them. I'm going to say like a 35 to like 28 win for UNLV. Okay, that is the show. You can read all of our articles at haterradio.com. You can reach us on our socials. Just type in Hater Radio. It comes right up. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yeah, at Twitter, it's at G5Gibson, and at YouTube and Instagram, it's at G_Gator_G.
Okay, that is the show, y'all. Enjoy these games. We'll talk to you on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. 1 week to go at that point. Literally, we have gone through this whole season. It's kind of crazy. It goes by so fast. It's the shortest season in all of sports. Enjoy it while you can. There's 2 home games for Florida. If you're a Florida fan, go to these games. UCLA, you got a home game tomorrow. Maybe one of the last times you can ever go to the Rose Bowl for a UCLA game. And then USC, UCLA next week. And then we got Florida, Florida State next week. So a ton to look forward to. Conference championship games coming up. So a lot of things happening. So coaching carousel. So we'll talk to you on Sunday. Take care, y'all.